I was on my grandfather's couch going, "Go Buckeyes, go." I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championship. Something stupid is coming out of his mouth. I don't know. Maybe it's just my age. He needs his vote pulled immediately. And of course, yes, a season like this has to have a name. Let's talk about something good about Justin Freck. What are you doing? Season of dreams. Ohio State, my guys, are either the best or the second best program in the history of college football. This guy is a bonehead. They love him. I question your judgment as an adult. I really do. I was a total hater. I know that for a fact, and I just don't get it. Get us back our sleeves and say, bring me that. That's the one I want. And welcome into Juckonbucks. Appreciate you all so much for joining me on a Tuesday morning. I talked to my buddy Dylan Davis about this once. Dylan Davis writes for the Delaware Gazette, newspaper columnist. And I figured as a columnist, there's probably some times where he's like, doesn't have a good idea for a story. And I talked to him about like writer's block, because there are times when I want to do the show, but like my creativity isn't flowing, and I don't just like report on stories. Like I have an opinion, a take, an angle. And there's times where I've just got nothing. Like I sit down and I try to, and I just got nothing. And those days, sometimes I'll just pull up comments and kind of let you guys, the comments lead me into something. But today is one of those days. I've got nothing, and it is what it is. I do want to thank my buddy Eric, who sent me some Buckeye cards. We've got a Sonny Styles autograph that is number 288 out of 300. We got a JJ freshman. Now, if you were the guy who was in charge of, you worked for the card company, and you were in charge of selecting what photograph you're going to use for JJ Smith's freshman card, would you choose a sweet photo of JJ, or would you choose one where he's wearing the bobblehead on top of his helmet? Like, what would you choose? I would choose no bobblehead if it was my choice. I'm sure you could find one. These guys chose the bobblehead, which I find highly irritating. We've also got a Will Howard hologram, which my son told me is called a holograph. I didn't know that. And a Christmas card from our Juckeye buddy, Tom. Thank you so much, my man. You guys are the best. Anyway, do you guys remember when we were kids growing up in the great state of Ohio, and we were sitting on our grandfather's lap, right? Late November, watching the Iron Bowl, as we do every year as kids in Ohio, and thinking, gosh, when I grow up, I want to be the head coach of Alabama. Do you remember when we used to do that when we were kids? It sounds pretty crazy, right? It is the equivalent of a kid from New Hampshire as a grown man saying this.
As a coach, whoever wears a whistle wants to be the Ohio State head coach. When did you know you wanted this job?
Again, probably when I was growing up and watching the Buckeyes on TV and watching them play the team up north. I remember being on my grandfather's couch and watching the game, and just the respect I had for this place, and it was always a dream of mine.
It's an interesting story. Was it an annual thing that these New Hampshire folks sat and watched the game and rooted for Ohio State? That's the team they just happened to pick. I was on my grandfather's couch going, "Go Buckeyes, go!" And that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a coach, and he wanted to be a coach not for the Patriots, but for a college in Ohio, because he had so much respect for it. But just the red ones, not the blue ones, because obviously who would like the blue ones? And ever since he was a kid, sitting on grandpa's lap, that's what it was. I find it to be a pretty far-fetched story. I really do. I got to say. And it is as likely as me watching Alabama-Auburn as a kid and thinking, I want to be the coach for the Crimson Tide, and then also getting hired for that job. Like, it's that likely. It could be true. It could be. It's a possibility. But it is that likely. I'm not going for it. Now, the Buckeyes with some rough news, transfer portal news. We lose another big body. Miles Walker enters the transfer portal, and he is an offensive tackle, 6'5", 317. He came in the 2023 class with Luke Montgomery, Austin Sareveld, and Josh Padilla. He was the lowest rated of those guys, about number 500 in the country. that's a high-ish 3-star. And it sucks. It's not a guy who I ever thought would start at Ohio State, but it's a depth piece, and those are tough to get in the portal. Nobody wants to come and be a depth piece somewhere. You're probably dropping down a level if you're going to be a depth piece somewhere, and you're going to go start at a lower level. So he's out of here. And when we're trying to bring in a bunch of tackle bodies, we lose one. The good news is, as we look at this transfer portal class, we're seeing a lot more guys enter than the previous cycle. And they know they're about to get paid. They're popping up left and right. And we're seeing Ohio State's contacting this kid. Ohio State's contacting that kid. And it gets me tempted. Should I go look this kid up? Should I go watch his film? And I've decided I'm not gonna. I'm gonna wait till the Buckeyes sign him. Then we'll watch their film. There's no sense in doing this because it's just silly until they actually sign these guys. And I did hear from a pretty reliable source that they are trying to sign 4 tackles. 4 offensive tackles. That's not counting the interior linemen. Now, we're all happy that they're trying to go after that many big bodies. That's great. That's a good thing. It's also incredibly embarrassing that you were in the position that you have to do that. And we all know why that is. But we knew they were going to be going after linemen. What we didn't know, and that is the Buckeyes going after a starting caliber quarterback. Now, I question everybody when they say anything, so I totally get it. I'm just telling you, I heard it from someone who would know, and I believe that is the case right now. Chris heard it from somebody entirely different, and we both heard it at around the same time frame. So I think that's what's going on right now. Whether that'll happen or not, I don't know, but I believe that that's what the plan is at the moment. I kind of thought all this year that the plan was Julian Sayin was going to be the leader heading into this year. Devin Brown would transfer out. Lincoln Keenholz would probably transfer out. Now, we've seen Devin transfer out. Will Lincoln go? Lincoln can probably start somewhere, so I think he will. But should you lose Lincoln, you've got Julian Sayin, Aaron Nolan, and freshman Tavian St. Clair. So you were definitely going to bring in a Chris Chugginoff type of quarterback. That's what most people thought. But it sounds more and more like it's going to be someone who's going to compete for that starting job with Julian Sayin. That was not something I thought would happen, because we remember how Ryan Day talked about Julian Sayin when he first got here. The spring and the preseason that Julian Sayin put on, he shot up the depth chart because he's so good. He's different. He throws the ball different. And we wondered all throughout the season, why in the heck was this kid not getting any garbage time reps? Like, it's come up a lot of times in the show. It's come up in the comments. And we have seen some, but what's the last time we saw it? We saw him taking a shot on a 4th and 1 that Ryan Day did not want him to, and I believe that's the last time we saw him take a snap this year. That pass infuriated Ryan Day. That was pretty clear right then and there, and we haven't seen him. Does Julian even stick around if you bring in a starting caliber quarterback to compete with him? I don't know. But it certainly looked like at one point Julian Sayin was the dude, and it doesn't quite feel so like set in stone anymore, which I think a lot of people are going to be happy to hear, because I know a lot of you guys are rooting for Aaron Nolan to potentially win that job. And, who knows? Who knows where that goes? But if you bring in a starting caliber quarterback, I just don't know what that says about Ryan Day, to be honest with you. When you look at Kyle McCord, who was in the system forever, heading out into the portal. Then Devin Brown in the system forever, heading out into the portal. These are his handpicked dudes. Lincoln Keenholz, handpicked dude, potentially heading out into the portal. He's definitely not going to be the starter. What if you got 3 dudes like that, just boom, gone into the portal in consecutive years? At what point do we start saying, okay, Justin Fields and CJ Stroud were otherworldly college football players, and without someone like that, this guy's not special at quarterback development, and he's definitely not special at identifying quarterback prospects. At what point does he lose that label? I don't know. Nobody's perfect. You're going to have misses. And when I say misses, I don't mean he missed on these guys. I don't mean he missed on McCord. I think McCord did a fine job this year. He's a starting quarterback. He's probably going to play in the NFL in some capacity. I wish the best for Devin too, but he went and handpicked these guys to be his guys. Like, he missed on that. They were not his guys. If McCord was his guy, he'd have made sure he was here this year. If Devin was his guy, he had opportunities to have Devin be his guy. And it doesn't look like Lincoln is being groomed to be his guy either. So how many misses in a row does it take? And if you bring in a starting quarterback from elsewhere in 2025, we sat here all last offseason and made fun of Notre Dame for bringing in Sam Hartman, following that up with Riley Leonard. Like, it was a running joke. And if Ohio State gets another 1-year rental in 2025 to come in and compete with Julian Sayin and he wins that job, same thing, same exact thing as Notre Dame. So while I'm not thrilled with it, if Julian Sayin's not getting it done and they don't think they got it on the roster, I'm sure happier about him going and being proactive about it than sitting on their hands. But Ryan Day's got the reputation of, like, that's his specialty, scoring points on offense and being the quarterback whisperer, right? That's what everybody says about him. If you don't call the plays anymore and you can't do the quarterback thing anymore, like, what is it that you bring to the table? I don't know. You're not a fantastic CEO. It's clearly not even your personality. What is it that you bring then if you don't have those things? Food for thought. But think about this. Seth McLaughlin, we were hoping during the season that he would get consideration for the Remington Trophy, for the best center in the United States of America. At one point, I thought he was a slam dunk to be a finalist. Well, the finalist just came out. And despite playing just 75% of the season, Seth McLaughlin is a finalist, one of just 3 in the country. The Tennessee center, Cooper Mays, is the other one. And Jacob Gideon is the third. Jacob Gideon out of Western Michigan. And if I was running this operation, Jacob Gideon from Western Michigan would have gotten a phone call from some shady character yesterday asking if he had time to set up a phone call with me, who, if I was running the organization, not me, Juck. You know what I mean? But congrats to 56. I love that dude. Real Buckeye, man. Great dude. And news in recruiting for my buddy Jimmy Jackson, who's been asking forever, when is Ohio State going to start pursuing Jackson Cantwell, the number 1 tackle in the country? He's out of Missouri. He's going to be visiting Ohio State December 14th, then Scum on December 15th. He's already visited Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Missouri, and Nebraska a few times. And one time, Miami, USC, and Oregon. So we've got our hat in the ring, Jimmy, with the dude's a stud, 6'7", 305. To be honest, the Buckeyes are in better standing with Emmanuel Ahianachu, who I think is better anyway, and he is the number 2 ranked guy. All right, so yesterday, Chris and I were talking about the college football bracket, and I was saying how silly it looks, and now people are finally seeing it and realizing, oh, this is not what we should do with the top 4 rated conference champions getting the bye week in the first round. Because you look at how unbalanced everybody's road is because of it. So he disagreed with me. I didn't have any idea that was coming. And we had just so I'm clear, I understand what you're saying. We had a good conversation about it. And we were discussing what would it look like if it was ranked just how it is, if it was a proper bracket. So I put it together. But first, let's take a look at how it is now. Your top 4 seeds are number 1, Oregon, number 2, Georgia, number 3, Boise, number 4, Arizona State. This is the bracket, how it looks, just put together as it's properly seeded. You've got number 1, Oregon, number 2, Georgia, number 3, Texas, number 4, Penn State. And here are the matchups. Ohio State, Arizona State, Tennessee, SMU, Indiana, Boise, Notre Dame, Clemson. The number 1 overall seed, Oregon, plays the winner of Indiana, Boise. So they get, a nice matchup potentially, as they should. They're the number 1 seed. The number 2 seed plays the winner of 7-10. Texas awaits the winner of Ohio State, Arizona State. And Penn State awaits the winner of Notre Dame, Clemson. When we look at the Final Four, it kind of sucks that you got the Big Ten champion and the Big Ten runner-up on one side and the SEC champion and the SEC runner-up on the other. You'd like to maybe see a rematch of them in the championship if you could. Or maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. Maybe you would rather see the odds being that you see a Big Ten versus SEC championship. Either way, the Big Ten in this bracket could still have an all Big Ten championship. The SEC is shut out from that. They cannot have an all SEC championship. But Ohio State and Oregon could play for the championship if this was the way it was. Obviously, this is way better. It's way more exciting. However, beggars can't be choosers. I'm happy with this the way it is. It's going to be a fantastic time. But by 2016, they're going to tweak this thing, and it'll look like this, which is the way it should look. Alabama Athletic Director Greg Burns crying about Alabama not making the playoffs, talking about not scheduling, tough out of conference. Alabama's out of conference was USF, Western Michigan, an FCS school, in Wisconsin. Badgers were 5-7, so that didn't end up helping them, but Alabama won all those games. All their losses took place in the FCS, in the SEC. I don't understand what it is that the out-of-conference scheduling had to do with this, but he's just trying to make the argument that, Indiana got by just by wins and not with a tough strength of schedule. SMU got by with wins and not a tough strength of schedule. And for a long time, the SEC could make these arguments and people listened. I think it's finally run its course. Like, everybody is sick of hearing the SEC gets to play by different rules. The public sentiment has swung on this. Forever, it was all the media types would just regurgitate the same line. And while admitting that the SEC is generally going to be stronger week in, week out, the difference from what it once was to what it is now between that and, say, the Big Ten, not as great as it once was, not even close. And everybody's tired of hearing it. And they're tired of a team that went out and lost 3 games in a season who played a dog crap out of conference, pretending like they played some awesome out of conference and then crying about it. Now, does Alabama deserve to be in over SMU? I don't think so. Maybe you do. And if you do, I'll hear your argument. But to pretend like it's some travesty of justice that they're not is absurd. So is Greg Burns, and he's our loser of the day. Let's get to a couple of your comments. Jeff McDowell says, Juck is the best. His arguments are so logical, it's hard to respond in opposition. If only women were like this. I showed that one to my wife, Jeff. Thank you. Richie said, my guy Juck, so torn on Ryan Day. And what Richie is referencing is yesterday, I said to Chris, I think this is what he's referencing. I said to Chris, are you surprised that the fan base turned so fast on Ryan Day? Like, are we being unfair? And Chris said, absolutely not. Now, I wouldn't say so much that I'm torn, Richie. I just don't want to be in this position, Like, we're heading into the playoffs, and I just want to tell myself, like, we're about to go stomp some heads. Like, we got these Tennessee people coming around talking smack. Like, I want to be on the same page, and I want to feel confident, and I guess part of me is trying to talk myself into it. You know what I mean? Thomas says, Juck, fans tolerate Day due to no other options, but hate how he coaches. Well, Tom, when we talk about other options, do you think that there is a guy out there who has been an offensive coordinator for 2 years and maybe stumbled around the NFL in various different departments? Because if there is, that's an option. That's what Ryan Day was, right? So the job pool is huge if that's the qualifications we need. We might even be able to do better than that. You know what I'm saying? Alpha Dog says, Richie Dubs, the majority of the fan base acted like beating Michigan, winning the Big Ten in a natty was a birthright this season. And that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. And Ryan Day, according to Rick Brick, set himself up. It's natty or bust this year. He put all the pressure on himself and this team. This is the thing. When they go out there and talk about the Ohio State fan base, like, it was the guys and the coach who were running around saying all this stuff. I did find it was kind of sad. So in the press conference on last Wednesday, Day was talking about the guys, and, the line has been all year, and he said it 100 times, these guys came back for a reason. And he went to say it. I've said it many times. These guys came back for a reason. He got real feeble when he said it. Because it sounds kind of bad right now. It sounds kind of bad. They can make it all right, but it does sound kind of bad right now. Rick Brick also says Ryan Day turned us into the New Hampshire Buckeyes. And apparently there are a lot of New Hampshire Buckeyes, as you heard at the beginning of the show here. Richie Dubs, there will always be expectations. Acting like winning a natty is a given is ridiculous, though. And that's, of course, correct. We haven't had a fistful of natties in my life. Tom says, come on, Juck. We've had 30 years between championships in our history. It's been 10 years since our last. We have to align the expectations. I agree. I'll cite you back to Rick Brick. He set the expectations. But to be quite honest, my expectations are never that you have to win a national championship, because I don't judge a successful season by national championships. I never have. Even when I'm judging, when I did the official Juckonbucks all-time college football rankings, like, it's not just like who has the most national championships. Let's go in order like that, because national championships require a lot of luck. Winning the actual game takes some luck. Getting in position, injury luck. Like, there's so many other ways to have a varying degree of success in a season. For instance, last year, let's say they lost a separate game, but beat Michigan and then won the Cotton Bowl. That would have felt like a successful season to me. Missed the playoffs, but won the Cotton Bowl and beat Michigan. I'd have been happy. It wouldn't have felt like a total failure to me, even though they missed the playoffs. Lost the wrong game and then went and lost the Cotton Bowl. And man, you look like a fool now for losing that one, because if you lose to Tennessee, that's 3 straight losses to Michigan, 3 straight losses to the SEC. No good. But I think that you can have a successful season without winning a national championship. If we couldn't do that, then I've only had a couple of successful seasons in my whole life, in my opinion, right? So that would just be silly to have that be the only thing that makes me feel like we've had a successful season. Dave says, Chuck, how cornered are you at the O-line changes before this game? Possibly Padilla at center and Austin at guard. Like, are you not terrified, Dave, about a guy who's never started a game in his life and barely ever even played? Like, Padilla's never played meaningful reps. I can't remember him ever playing meaningful reps. To start against that Tennessee front, I mean, he better be doing so good in practice, man. Like, it's got to be so good. Richie says, it's funny how 2 active coaches have natties, but it's natty or bust for Day. It's fair, but again, he did a lot of this to himself, number one. Number two, it wasn't natty or bust based on, like, this is just what is expected out of the coach. It's natty or bust if you want to stick around here, in a lot of people's mind, because of the consistent losses in the game and the consistent disappointing postseason outcomes. That's why it's gotten to that point. It's never just been like, that's our standard for the coach, natty or bust, or you're out of here. Anyway, guys, I apologize for my writer's block today, and I apologize that this episode is so short. Unfortunately, that's all I have today. Hopefully, I gave you something to think about, and I would like you to tell me in the comments after you're done subscribing to the show, please, because I'm your dude, and I really like you too. Ryan Day, full of crap in that statement, or is he true? Is it honest? Let me know. What do you guys think? Talk to you later. Juckonbucks out. He needs his vote pulled immediately. And I'll say, I don't care. The leader, the boss. Where is Josh Heupel? The largest humans he can find. You got Miami and Georgia and Florida State and Tennessee and Texas A&M. Kirby wants you. LSU and Ole Miss. Not even a football player, but he's 6'10", 334. Kirby said, sign me up. That's all they've got to offer when it comes to a defensive player. What could they possibly say other than, how down do you have to be for a win? Let us pay you. All they got to be is enormous. What could they possibly say? Knock the team out west. Oh, well. They'll take him if they're lowly rated, too. I'm not some guy who's some Big Ten homer. Behind that, I will never find it acceptable. I want to see it, man.